Alright, Math Lab, we're going to be looking at complex numbers because Mr. Spratz is going to start looking at those answers, and I want to show you where that comes from. So, to begin with, we have one fact. All quadratics have two answers. Now, quadratics are whenever you have an x squared. So everything we do that has an x squared should have two answers to it. Now, this makes sense because if I have a parabola and I'm looking for where it crosses the x-axis, how many answers do I have? Well, I have 1, 2. So I normally get 2 zeros, or 2 x-intercepts, or 2 roots. Now there are these weird times where if you push that quadratic up just enough, it'll come down and it'll touch that x-axis at just one point. Now that is actually a double root. Sometimes you get two of the same answer, and that's just because it only nicks that x-axis. Now, if you push that parabola any further up, well, how many answers do we have? Well, it should be 2, right? But when we look at the parabola, it's not crossing the line at all. So where are those 2 answers? So that's why we go into complex numbers. So, for example, I'm going to start showing you this, but I'm going to use numbers now. So if I had x squared minus 4 equals 0, because I see that square, I should have 2 answers there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 4 to both sides. I should just have x squared equals 4. If I square root, I get x equals, got to do the plus minus thing because you're square rooting, and you'd have the square root of 4. Now this, we know, is positive 2, and we have negative 2 out of that. So yeah, there are 2 answers. Well, what if we had something like this? The way to do this one is not to undo. What we want to do is factor. So when I think what goes into 9 and adds up to negative 6, I'm thinking negative 3 and negative 3. So that would be x minus 3 equals 0. We've done this before. We factor to get our intercepts, or our zeros. Now, what is the answer that comes from there? Well, what minus 3 would be 0? That's 3. But what is the answer here? That is also 3. That's one of the double roots. That's just like up here. It just touches at 3, but then it bounces off. I still have 2 answers. It's just 2 of the same answers. So, those are the 2. Now this last one is going to be one where we don't have an answer. So let's write this out. Now why doesn't this have an answer? Well, I have to subtract 4 on both sides. I get x squared equals negative 4. And what do I have to do? Well, square root. The problem is I have plus or minus the square root of negative 4. Now here's the problem. If you put that in your calculator, it blows up. It says domain error probably, or just error. Because if you ask the question, what times what is negative 4? That's what a square root is asking. Now if I do negative 2 and negative 2, it'll be positive 4. If I do 2 and 2, it'll be positive 4. Some people say, why don't we do negative 2 and positive 2? Well, those aren't the same though. They have to be the same. So this is where we go into complex numbers.